The lockdowns have ended and business activity is resuming, albeit in a changed environment. Turkish Finance Minister Berat Albayrak says government efforts to curb the spread of COVID-19 are helping economic activity rise sharply in the third quarter. GDP is expected to rise by 0.3% this year and 5.8% in 2021.
To reach our growth targets, we will focus on exports, value-added production and employment as we've always done.
He's laid out these priorities as part of the country's new medium-term economic program. Over the next 3 years, the government's planning more infrastructure projects to strengthen supply chains and distribution networks for Turkish industries. It's locking in long-term energy import deals to take advantage of relatively low international prices. And it's offering incentives to high-tech industries to create domestic substitutes for expensive imports. The government hopes these measures will cut the jobless rate from 13.8% this year to 10.9% by 2023. A pickup in exports and tourism is expected to turn the current account balance from a deficit of 3.5% of GDP to a surplus of 0.1% over the next 3 years. And government funding will ease from 4.9% to 3.5% of GDP as private sector investments rise. Some early signs of recovery are already evident. The Turkish Statistical Institute says business confidence rose by 3.1% in September to 88.5. And industry representatives say government initiatives should help businesses, especially those worst affected by the pandemic.
The authorities are focused on vulnerable sectors like tourism and services, and they seem prepared for alternative scenarios that may result from a prolonged pandemic. It's a realistic plan, and I believe it provides the right policy response.
Compared to other developing economies, Turkey has managed to resume economic activity quickly. And with a clear plan forward, the government hopes to sustain this momentum in coming years. Mobin Nasir, TRT World, Istanbul.
Well, for more on this, economist and financial columnist Taha Arvas joins us now from Istanbul. Great to have you back with us, Taha. Now, as we heard there, Finance Minister Berat Albayrak says he expects the Turkish economy to escape a contraction this year as other countries suffer record plunges in GDP. Do you expect this prediction to come to bear? And tell us more about how the government will achieve this.
Sure. I think it's more of a target, frankly, than a prediction. I think there's a range that the minister talked about. Obviously, the coronavirus has hit Turkey as it has hit all other countries globally, but Turkey has surprisingly weathered it well, as you probably know as well. And so because Turkey is, as you know, a service-based dominated economy, as long as consumer spending continues at rates, close to, obviously not at, but close to pre-pandemic levels, Turkey should be able to weather this downturn quickly and recover successfully.
Now, we know inflation has been a running battle for the government. So the consumer price index in August rose to 11.77%. Turkey's finance minister says that rate should drop to 10.5% by the end of the year and 8% the following year. What measures will help to bring down inflation?
Well, one of the first things that's fortunate and unfortunate at the same time is there's been global deflation, as you know, for a lot of commodities and for goods globally. And the reason is because there's been a loss of demand destruction. So as a result, prices have come down considerably for a lot of goods globally. So if Turkey can take advantage of that, then it should be fine if it can take advantage of that. Inflation will come down because prices just aren't as hot as they used to be pre-pandemic.
Okay, and this improving outlook both on GDP and inflation is based on expectations that Turkey hopefully won't have to return to the lockdown measures we saw earlier this year that shut down large parts of the economy, albeit not every day as other economies had experienced. But are you worried that we might see a return of these restrictions as we approach winter?
I'm banking on a vaccine coming out before the end of the year, hopefully. And even if that doesn't come to fruition, as you know, the Turkish people have been accustomed to these restrictions, the wearing of masks and social distancing. There are some countries where there's been an outcry and people resisted doing these types of precautions. So the Turks have kind of fallen into line in that respect. So I think if that continues and the pandemic is held under control, then we won't have to go back to these type of restrictions. But if not, obviously that'll have to come back. But hopefully it won't.
Now, we saw Turkey's central bank deliver a surprise interest rate hike of 2 percentage points last week, surprising many analysts and economists. And that action helped to boost the lira, which, as we know, has been under a bit of pressure. But do you expect to see future rate hikes from the central bank?
Yeah, I hope not, frankly, because what we've seen through the Federal Reserve Chairman Jay Powell a couple of weeks ago, and the European Central Bank, et cetera, is a focus on decreasing rates for the next few months, for the next few years. Actually, the Federal Reserve has said the rates will be zero until 2024. So if Turkey can take advantage of global decrease in rates, then it won't need to raise rates, because relatively its rates will pay more than these other countries, and so we won't have to go back to hiking rates, and perhaps could see rate cuts in the future should things go back to normal, or as close to normal as they can be.
Okay, Taha Arvas, economist in Istanbul, thanks as always for joining us on the program.